Hey folks, this is Rabble Rousing Rich Bergeron.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Tornado Tony Penecale.
And Psychic Tom Paget with his crystal ball all unveiled. Ready to go.
Alright. And this week we got a big UFC matchup. It's a rematch. Israel Adesanya versus Robert Whittaker. We've got a couple decent fights according to BoxRec and boxing going on. And we didn't miss a whole lot last week, but there was a big UFC card. I ended up winning on one lineup, but it was a tough one to predict. A couple fights there, but anyway. And then obviously we got the big Super Bowl weekend this weekend. No, that's not fighting, but that's probably why there's not a whole bunch of boxing matches going on. They don't usually happen on Sunday. But anyway.
Yeah, right.
It's a big week, sports-wise, and last week the big one was, what was it? I don't know what number UFC it was, or it was fight night or whatever, but it was kind of a boring fight. And it went all 5 rounds, and it was a little bit back and forth, but Strickland, who is usually just a all-out crazy man in there and has unreal power, went up in there against Jack Hermanson and just kind of looked like he was in a sparring match. He even said it afterwards. I felt like it was a sparring match.
kind of look, yeah, kind of a snooze fest. Well, he said afterwards, the pressure, he knew he'd be a fight away from a title shot. He just didn't want to be himself. That's kind of let down, though.
Yeah. Especially for a guy who said he would be proud to kill a guy in the ring, in the cage.
Yeah.
Unreal. Anyway, so that one, I had hedged my bets. I had one guy on one card and the other guy on 2 other cards. I think Hermanson was actually on the winner card, the one that doubled my money. But he, for 5 rounds, he didn't score a lot of points. You pretty much have to get knockouts anyway. But even sometimes in the 5 rounds one, if a guy scores enough points and it goes all 5 rounds, that'll be the top score. But yeah, it was tough one to pick. I didn't pick the Sam Alvey fight because he's a former guest of ours and really nice guy, and I kind of thought he was going to lose, but I didn't want to bet against him. And then Smiling Sam, yeah. He was didn't have much to smile about there. But
that had to be about 8 years ago. It's time to reevaluate.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually got a message out to the same guy that booked Sean there, Sean Wheelock, your new favorite guest, your new old favorite guest. So we're working on it. But anyway, Brendan Allen beats old Smiling Sam by rear naked choke. And then the co-main event was Shavkat Rachmaninoff.
And took the fight on short notice, too, by the way.
Yeah,
he took that fight on very short notice. Good for him.
Yep. He's always been really good, too. But he was very expensive. Very expensive. Sam, I don't know what his future is, but he's been doing it sort of independently for a long time. His girlfriend is in his corner, or his wife. I think it's his wife. And I don't know. He just seems to not evolve enough to stay in the mix. But he's still getting main event. I mean, not main event, but main card fights like this. So they must like him. He must be smiling a lot in those negotiation meetings. But we hope he turns it around next fight. Anyway, Rachmaninoff beat Carlston Harris. I unfortunately picked him as my underdog on a couple of the lineups, and that didn't work out because he got knocked out. Spinning hook kick and punches. The reason I tried to look at it like, well, this guy's got a bunch of wins, I think he had like 4 or 5 wins back to back. So he was on a little streak, even though Rachmaninoff was totally undefeated. But I figured if anybody's going to beat him, it's probably going to be this guy. And what a disappointment that was. Didn't even last through the first round. And then Brian Battle, who's a really just totally unorthodox style. But, I mean, he's just a grinder. He gets in there and he just grinds people down. And Trayshawn Gore came in, I think, 3-0 undefeated and took his first loss there by unanimous decision. And then Julian Erosa got the win over Steven Peterson by split decision. John Castaneda over Miles John by an arm triangle choke, 1 minute and 38 seconds into the third round. That was pretty interesting fight. It was a little bit back and forth before that happened. And then Hakeem Dawodo beat Michael Trezano by unanimous decision. And one I was very proud and happy that I got right. Chidi Njokwani beating Marc-Andre Barrial. It only took him 16 seconds. Yeah, that's a rough one for Mark to handle, boy. Felt like he didn't even get off his stool, I bet. No, you don't really have a stool in the first round. But anyway. Alexis Davis beating Julia Stoliorenko by unanimous decision. This was not one of those cards where you had to have a female fight, because that was the only one, and it was a decision. I kind of knew that going in because I did not pick anyone in that fight, but still couldn't get all the knockouts. First 3 fights were all ended in knockouts, so that was kind of a surprise. Jailton Almeida over Danilo Marquez, first round knockout from punches, 2 minutes and 57 seconds into that one. Philip Rowe over Jason Witt, that was one I picked correctly. That was a TKO in the second round, 2 minutes and 15 seconds in. And this one I got wrong, but it's like one of those things where you tell yourself something before you make a pick in that situation, and you're like, this guy doesn't even look like a fighter. I don't think he's gonna win. But then you think in the back of your mind, but chances are he probably will, even though you're picking against him. Watch, he's gonna win. He got a TKO from an arm injury against a guy who was a notorious submission artist. How the hell does that happen? Unreal. So that was that card. And then we've got the Whittaker card this weekend. But we had some boxing last week to talk about too, so we're going to switch to that for a second. The Jesus fight of the week last week. Jesus Alejandro Ramos extended his winning streak to 18 with 15 knockouts with a win over Vladimir Hernandez. It was a TKO in round 6 there. And we also had a big pay-per-view match up there with Keith Thurman and Mario Barrios. I did not see that one, but I caught a little bit of the undercard action between Abel Ramos and Lucas Santamaria. So I was watching a little bit of that, and I thought Santamaria was losing early on, but he ended up turning it around and winning that fight. So more power to him. That was quite the comeback there.
Tony, what did you think of the Thurman fight, or did you see any of it?
I did not. Saturday was not a good day, and we'll talk about that later. So Saturday night, I was kind of in a fog, and one of the blessings, and like I said, I'll this later, is when you're the vice president of your collegiate team alumni, you get the opportunity to help admin their Facebook page, and for a private Facebook page, you're always adding people and reviewing any posts before they can be allowed. That way, keeps the spam down. My phone was nonstop all night from posts on that page. That I was literally sleeping at like 3 a.m. I'd hear a ping. I'd open my eyes and let me approve that real quick. I'd fall back to sleep and ping, let me approve that real quick. So I really didn't have a lot of time Saturday night. Ready. I don't honestly even remember Saturday night.
Yeah, a very special guy that we both knew. You knew better than me, but
Yeah.
I met him once down in Pennsylvania. We went on like a 7-hour road trip to get down there from Norwich in Vermont, and I went and took my test during the middle of a match that they were having. And I took my test to be certified, and so I met him briefly. I who could forget that voice? I don't think I've met anybody else with a voice like that. But you do. I told you do it really well.
And like I said, we'll get into this more in a little bit, so that way I can put proper time and thought and speaking into it. But to a testament of how well that voice was known, if you ever go to a Lock Haven boxing show and the after, we're with Sons of Italy, and you have guys, Nally, he was the first Lock Haven boxer, him and Gary Rosado. He's now the coach of the U.S. Naval Academy. He was one of the members of the 08 Olympic team in Beijing. You have guys, Ken Cooper, you have, just a bunch of people, and everybody does this. And everybody has their own way of doing it. Like, I can tell you right now, if I hear someone doing it, they're like, oh, that's Jason Fletcher doing it. Oh, that's Ken Cooper doing it. But everybody has their own way of doing the voice. 10 or so years ago, when we had Antonio Tarver on the air, and I mentioned the 96 Olympics team, I did the voice. He goes, oh, you know Dr. Cox. Yeah, you can kind of say that I do. I actually messaged Antonio Sunday, I think it was, on Instagram and told him.
Yeah, I can remember that day so clearly,
so,
too.
Saturday, like I said,
because that was the day we also got all the Naval Academy's cast-off equipment. I still have some of those gloves in my garage. The old horsehair ones, literally filled with horsehair.
Yeah. I know exactly the one you're discussing.
Yeah. And some headgear. I still got some of that, too. Back in the day. Makes me feel old sometimes, but not that long ago when you really think about it. Anyway, so next week we've got, or this weekend, Saturday, we've got a couple fights that are on the front page of BoxRec here. Felix Cash versus Magomed Madiev. I don't know anything about either guy, but I did check on Felix Cash because I had to click on that name because I thought for a second that might have been the little kid that I filmed. Talk about feeling old. I thought, wait a second, is this that little kid that was at Floyd Mayweather's boxing gym that I got a video on when I was out there back in 2011? I was at the gym for the Ortiz Media Day. We all know what happened there. But anyway, there was this little kid. They called him Cash Flow. He was in the ring doing shadow boxing, and he was probably like 9-10 years old at the time. And so I talked to his dad, and I did a little piece about him on the website, and I put up the video. And so I was like, oh, I wonder if this is the same guy. And sure enough, it's a white guy from the UK. So this kid was like a little Hispanic dude. Definitely was not him. But anyway, also fighting a big name here, Daniel Jacobs against John Ryder, who I've never heard of. But,
I've heard of John Ryder. John Ryder, did he fight on that card I was out in Vegas a couple years ago? I'll pull it up and I'll look, but I definitely know him. No.
Yeah, I'm pulling it up his record now. 30-5 is his record. Only one time been knocked out. 17 of his own knockouts. Coming off a TKO of a guy who's 8-2 to face a guy who's 37-3. So big step up in competition. Although he did fight Callum Smith back in November 2019, who was undefeated. Went the distance in a loss. And then before his last fight, he fought some guy. Mike Guy. That's his name. 12-5-1. So, yeah, he had a couple tune-up fights, it looks like, and now he's ready to go back to the big guys. But he had quite a streak of knockouts before the Smith fight. Nobody, like, really well-known, but, great records. Rocky Fielding was the loss before that. That was a split decision in 2017. Then he had wins against Patrick Nielsen, Jamie Cox, Andre Sorokin, and Bilal Akawi. And all of them had...
that's the one I was at.
No losses or one loss. All of those guys.
Yeah. The Bilal Akawi fight was the one in... when I was there a couple years ago, third round knockout. And I remember that.
All right.
He really.
So.
See, Rick, that's your Rain Man of boxing coming through for you again.
Right. And then we have a little bit, I mean, it could have been more tragic, but a little bit unfortunate news, big time unfortunate news. Robert Easter Jr. was mugged and robbed. Shot 3 times. Is recovering now from surgery. He had no fights planned for this year, but definitely, if this hadn't happened, could have worked something out before the end of the year, I'm sure. I just don't get these guys. I don't want to criticize the victim here, but I just don't get these guys that walk around with all this bling with no bodyguards or armed guards around them all times. If you can afford the jewelry, you can afford the guy with the gun escorting you everywhere.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, that's just something that
sat with his family when he won the title from Richard Comey in 2016 in Reading, PA. Sat amongst his family, so I was definitely part of the Easter Bunny cheering section.
And it kind of reminds me of something I saw on the news this morning. They were talking about Homeland Security doing the Super Bowl because they're really worried about some kind of attack or whatever. And so the spokesman for Homeland Security said L.A. is going to be safer for the people that are coming from Cincinnati than Cincinnati would be for them. And this happened in Cincinnati. Yeah, right. So I guess maybe he's right. I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, we definitely hope that Robert has a smooth recovery and gets back in there. But basically, the robbers wanted his jewelry. He had, some gold chains and some diamond rings and stuff like that, and bling. And they just told him, hand it over. And I guess he had all the bullets removed. He's obviously expected to survive, but it's obviously up in the air about when or if he's coming back. It doesn't really tell you where he was shot. But, it's just crazy. And, it just highlights the whole country having issues with just criminal behavior. Everything from these little smash and grabs to the guy who was on the news the other day, who was on the front page of the New York Post for walking out of a Trader Joe's in New York City with a stack of steaks, 12 steaks, and the only thing the store people could do was keep him from bringing the cart home. Well, he said he was homeless, but so he walks out of the store, and then he tries to harass the street sweeper to give him a bag because he doesn't have the cart anymore. It's like unreal.
My cousin made a great point. He's one of those guys, super sarcastic. He makes me look tame. And he goes, basically, you can go to the Super Bowl without a ticket and steal $999 worth of merchandise and in trouble. Because it's not $1,000. So
yeah.
Good point. In the Super Bowl and steal $999 worth of merchandise, and how ridiculous does that sound?
Oh yeah, well, New York State and New York City especially are like really getting hammered hard by the liberal, policies that they've put into the justice system down there. So that now,
Philadelphia too, man.
yeah, Philadelphia is, they. I know for years they've had issues with the police, and it's not so much now. I think New York has taken over top spot, but they were their district attorney there in Philadelphia was taking a lot of heat at one point for his policies. But in New York, you can literally go in and rob a store at gunpoint, and as long as you do not fire the gun, it's not a felony if you get caught.
Yep.
It's like, what? Who thought of this idea? And then they have this no cash bail situation, so people just go in for an hour and come right back out, and they can do whatever crimes they want. Won't be held. But anyway, I digress. So this week, looking at the full schedule here for Box Rec. See if anything else pops out that I missed on the main page. Not a whole lot of action. Like I said, it's a big sports weekend, so maybe in some of the foreign countries. But in New Zealand, we have our only fight on the card, and it's also our mismatch of the week, and it's for a title. The vacant New Zealand Professional Boxing Commission female featherweight title. And it says it's a female featherweight title, but it's a super featherweight tag on the fight. So I don't know what's going on there. Maya Motu is 10-0 going up against Aisha Abied, who is 0-3. Talk about a mismatch. Yeah. A title mismatch. That's a new one for us, I believe. Anyway, nothing big going on really, other than the ones we just mentioned before. Halfway down. We got our Zorro fight of the week here at Cruiserweight. Talk about a 10-0 fighter. Ellis Zorro. That's his name. Aussie Jervier is his opponent, 6-18. It's another little mismatch there down in over across the pond in Essex, United Kingdom. Main event there is for a title, but not a really big one. Billy Allington at super lightweight, 9-1-3, fighting Jamie Robinson, who's 11-4-2 for the vacant BBB of C English super lightweight title. And the old Jamie Quinn is on this card, and his record is 8-122-2. 122 losses. And believe it or not, he is not the biggest loser, you could call him, on this card. But he's not fighting a big name, but a funny name, Boy Jones at lightweight. How'd you like a first name, Boy? I hope he's not black. That'd be even worse. I don't want to get Joe Rogan complaints, but 18-4 though, quite a respectable record with one draw. Boy Jones. Anyway, the biggest loser on this card is fighting a guy in his pro debut named Alfie Winter. Is a super welterweight, and he's fighting Kevin McCauley, who is 15, 221, and 12.
Wow.
221 losses. That is what you call a professional opponent.
Wow, he loses. That'd be triple twos. 222. Wow.
And then we had the Daniel Jacobs fight I mentioned against John Ryder. We've got a couple title fights complementing that. Like I said, Felix Cash. Oh, that's the same one. So he's on those two are on the same card, and it's both going on DAZN, DAZN, in London on Saturday. And then there's a super bantamweight title fight, 3-0 Ellie Scotney against Georgina Guanini for a female bantamweight title, WBA Intercontinental variety. Looks like the experience versus youth here at middleweight. Austin Williams 9-0 against Javier Francisco Maciel, who is 33-15. Yikes. Alright, what else we got going on? Here's another mismatch, maybe not the mismatch of the week since it's not for a title, but it's the main event in Western Florida at super lightweight. Courtney Jackson, 21-3 against Antonio Sanchez, who is 6-13 with 3 draws. Nothing actually too spectacular. And then in Dedham, Massachusetts, we got some fights. James Perella was actually a late replacement against, or no, he was already scheduled to fight, but they replaced his opponent. I forget who he was supposed to fight. But anyway, the main event has actually been moved up. Francis Hogan is going to be in the main event because of that, against Vincent Floyd. And these are kind of mismatches too. But James Perella is 9-0 at welterweight, fighting Zach Kuhn, who's 10-10 with 1 draw. So that's the late replacement. And then Frank Hogan is 9-0 fighting Vincent Floyd, who is 4-11-1. And actually, one of our former guests and my former pupil, even though he probably knew more than me about boxing at the time, Michael Reyes is getting up there in the promotional business there in the Massachusetts area. So this is he'll probably be there. I don't know if any of his fighters will be there, but this is right in his backyard there. Anyway, I'm looking at the Kevin McCauley record. I was just curious after I read that record to see when was his last win. 15 of them. He looks like he should be one of the characters in Jackass. I just saw too the clip where Francis Ngannou was brought in to punch somebody in the nuts. One of the Jackass guys. You guys see that yet? Oh my God! The guy's face turns red like instantly.
Haven't seen it.
I'll have to send you the clip. Oh my God, it's bad. So the last time that Kevin McCauley won was actually 2017, 4-rounder. The referee actually scores it over in the UK sometimes still, like they used to do. So yeah, he beat a guy who, it was his pro debut. So he beat a guy who ended up 1-3. His last fight was 2020, February of 2020. Lost to a guy who was 1-0. And the only win that guy has is against MJ Hall, who was 0-13 at the time. 6 degrees of separation there. Unreal. Alright, so now the last big thing we got to talk about, well, a couple of big things. There's a little bit of a beef between Bruce Buffer and Anthony Johnson, but we're going to go to UFC 271 first. Israel Adesanya, 21-1 against Robert Whittaker. It's 23-5. This is a rematch. Adesanya won the first one. And it actually came out recently. I think it was something Michael Bisping said, or maybe Robert Whittaker himself admitted it, but I guess he was like scared shitless going into the first fight. Like he was literally like really nervous and dealing with some major anxiety. So he's hoping this one will be different because he's going to be more prepared and more confident in his game. And he's had to do a lot to get back to this position, to get this fight. So there's a lot on the line. Sometimes that works in a fighter's favor, other times not so much. But I really don't see Israel embarrassing himself here. The only time he's really had a tough fight was when he bumped up in weight. So at his natural best fighting weight, I think he's going to have no problem here. But Whittaker He's a very durable fighter.
I think it'll go on longer. I think it'll definitely go on longer than the first one, but I think at the end of the night ends still.
Yeah. And Israel has a lot of reasons to keep fighting in the UFC now because he just extended his contract. And it's kind of an interesting situation. I just read this earlier that Israel, Francis Ngannou, and Kamaru Usman are like all of African descent. Like, not just because they're black, but, you know, literally they have family in Africa. So, you know, they were kind of like three peas in a pod as far as their, you know, their marketability and their, you know, their special stories, especially Ngannou coming from a homeless situation and, you know, wanting to box first, and then they threw him into the cage and he's the champion. But now Usman is managed by a guy the UFC loves, Ali Abadiz, and then Israel just signed his new contract, so it kind of leaves Francis on an island. You know, just wondering when he's going to get rescued here, because his buddies kind of are making it look like he's out to lunch and he's not appreciating what he has. And then there was, on top of that, there was it's kind of a sidetrack, but there was a great interview with Derek Lewis the other day, who was signed to fight Tai Tuivasa. And this is going to be the co-main event of this fight. So it's not really off topic. But Derek is 26-8 and Tai is 13-3. And there's a couple stories to this one. Not only the press conference, but some of the stuff said by Tai before that press conference even began. But Derek comes right out to the press conference, and this guy is just classic, just funny. He's like laid back to the point where he just does not give a shit what people think about him. So, you know, he's probably most famous for saying he had to take a shit after the fight when Joe Rogan came up to him to interview him. So anyway, Derek's talking to these reporters, and he's like, "You guys all ask me the same questions. I hate doing this, you know." So one guy asked what he did for his birthday, and he says, "Oh, well, you know, me and the wife had a little workout, and we tried some things we'd never done before." I was losing it laughing. And then Tai Tuivasa had said, "Oh, if I win, I'm going to ask for Derek's cup, and I'm going to drink a beer out of Derek's cup." Because, you know, the shoey thing is like a New Zealand deal or Australia thing where you put beer in a shoe and you drink it. And I don't know where that came from, but, I mean, I can relate a little bit because there was this thing that we used to do at Norwich called grog. And basically, like, you'd have a banquet or a dinner, a special military dinner, and, you know, people that you want to call out, whether it's for a good reason or a bad reason, you mix up this grog full of just nasty stuff, and you make them drink a shot of it. But you gotta, like, you do a toast beforehand to tell them why they're getting grogged. And I actually saw it done at, like, a school-wide event, and the commandant of the school had to drink out of his shoe. And they ladled the grog into the shoe, and there was a sock in the grog. So they made sure they got the sock where he had to drink it. Oh, my God. But I've never heard of it done with a cup. That's pretty disgusting. So they asked Derek about it, and he's like, "No, man, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to let him do that." He's like, and then they asked him if he would do it, you know. And he's like, "No, maybe a woman's cup, but not a man's cup." And I'm thinking, well, do women even have cups? I don't know. Oh, that was funny. So anyway, Tai Tuivasa also said, speaking of drinking beer out of a shoe, that he agreed to the fight with Derek Lewis while he was drunk. And he woke up the next day and somebody told him that he agreed to the fight, and he kind of had some regrets about it. But, you know, he's not pulling out or anything. Yeah, that's a new one. I took the fight when I was drunk. Well, I guess now he has a built-in excuse if he loses. So, that's that one. And then we have a middleweight bout between Jared Cannonier, 14-5, and Derek Brunson, who's 23-7. By the way, I like Derek Lewis now, if you can't tell. Although, Ty is very unpredictable. Like, he looks like he's out of shape. He gets in there and he knocks people out. But, it all depends. Derek has been very unpredictable, too. Like, he could dance around for an hour with Ngannou. Or not Ngannou. Was it Ngannou? No, Gagne. I knew it was one or the other. So, anyway, it was kind of a boring fight there, but, he can knock people out when he really wants to. So, this is going to be an interesting one. I do think Derek has, way more experience and has fought the tougher guys, so he's definitely my pick there. But, both of them are definitely capable of a knockout, so I don't think that's going all 3 rounds. And we have 12th fight of the night is a bantamweight bout. Kyler Phillips, 9-2, against Marcelo Rojo, who's 16-7. And before that, we got Bobby Green, 28-12-1, against Nasrat Hakparast, who is 13-4. Old Andre back in action. Andre Arlovsky, 32-20 now. Over 50 fights. That's wild. I didn't know he had that many, actually. He's fighting Jaron Vandera, who is 12-6. So I like him to get back in the win column there. That's a heavyweight fight. And a retirement fight here for Roxanne Modafferi. I had read about her signing this fight with Casey O'Neill, who's 8-0, undefeated. But I didn't hear it was a retirement fight until this week. So I don't know whether that was a recent decision or she had always planned this to be her last fight. But that's not a pushover for your last fight. But Modafferi has fought all kinds of people. I met her in person at an event in Worcester, Mass, where Butterbean promoted it. And they call her the Happy Warrior, but she is just very soft-spoken, very gracious. She actually got slammed to a knockout in that card by Tara De La Rosa, I think it was. It was a tough loss for her, but she was very professional about it, and definitely have to get her on the show. She's also an English teacher, overseas. So that's got to be she's definitely got to have some cool stories about that. But anyway, that's her retirement fight. She had a long career. Hopefully it's not, she doesn't go out 25-20. And she gets that win, gets 26-19. I don't know that much about Casey, but 8-0 is nothing to squint at there. It's a good record. An 8th fight of the night is Alex Perez, 24-6, against Matt Schnell, who's 15-6. I don't really know a lot about either guy there. 7th fight, William Knight, Knight, 11-2, fighting Maxim Grishin, who's 31-9. 2 draws. A lot of fights there. Leoman Martinez, 9-2, against Ronnie Lawrence in the 6th fight of the night. He's 7-1, Ronnie. Alexander Hernandez, 13-4, against Renato Carnero, who's 15-4 with 1 draw at lightweight. And 4th fight of the night, 3-1, Carlos Ulberg against Fabio Charant, who is 7-3. We got AJ Dobson in the 3rd fight of the night, 6-0, against Jacob Malkoon, who's 5-1. Douglas Silva DeAndrade, who is 27-4, fighting Sergey Morozov, who is 17-5 at bantamweight. And the 1st fight of the night, 9-2-1, Jeremiah Wells at welterweight, fighting Mike Mathetha, who is 3-0. And then we had a story brewing this week with Bruce Buffer, talking about Francis Ngannou and what his chances of being relevant are if he leaves the UFC. And that, in turn, ticked off Anthony Rumble Johnson, who I do believe we had him on the show years ago. It might have been before Tom's time, but I'm pretty sure we did get him way back in the day, probably like 10 years ago. Who knows? But he hasn't fought in a while, and there's been like stories out about why. Something about a medical condition, but I've never heard what the medical condition was. But anyway, he's been able to stay fairly relevant while he has been fighting. He was in the big tournament there, and he got in a little bit of trouble for stealing someone's credit card to get to the last event he actually participated in. But other than that, he's doing a little bit better financially, I believe, than he has done with the UFC. But anyway, Buffer caused some waves when he shared his thoughts on Francis Ngannou's beef with the UFC, and so he basically is probably going to sit out a year, like we talked about, so that his contract will end, and then he can go somewhere else. But Bruce said, no offense to other organizations, but you become irrelevant when you leave the UFC after a while. Instead of losing in the UFC, your contract is being ended in the UFC, and if you fall from the octagon, down into the Bellators. So, of course, Johnson, being from Bellator, took offense to that, and went on Instagram to share his 2 cents. He says, Bruce needs to stay off crack. So, how's anything irrelevant when providing food and shelter for family? Oh, by the way, I got paid way more for moving to another organization. Bruce has his guaranteed money, so he can talk. Fighters have to wait and actually entertain people when they get the chance to make some money. But I guess that's a knock at Bruce not being able to entertain people with his announcing. As ring announcements. Rumble, obviously, speaks from experience, because he has gone down to what they consider a feeder league in some areas. But I mean, it's been good and bad. Some people it's been great. Other people, they've kind of got lost in the mix. But what does it say? So he's only fought once in the 2.5 years since his comeback plans began in 2019. Because remember, he did retire briefly, Johnson. He said he was going to start some medical marijuana company and get into that business, and then he went back to Bellator. So obviously that didn't work out. And I also did an interview, like a 15-minute quick deal with Bruce Buffer years ago, and I remember him specifically talking about the management style of the Fertittas, because I asked him, what's it like to work for those guys, and he said something like, they're loyal to you if you're loyal to them, which to me was like the biggest line in the whole interview. So obviously, you're literally the mouthpiece for the UFC. You're going to take the UFC's side. But this just, it's kind of like rule 1 of sales. When I used to do sales, they would always tell us, you do not bash the competition. It's unprofessional. Those without those other organizations, you can't say you're the best. You have to have something to compare yourself with. But that's no reason to call people who go there irrelevant. They could still be a great fighter. It's just they haven't got the call up to the UFC, if you want to call it that, or they haven't been in a position to want to go to the UFC, maybe because Bellator, even though they might not pay all their fighters as much as UFC fighters in the same position make, these guys make out because they can have their own sponsors in Bellator, whereas UFC puts a barrier up and not only makes the sponsor pay them a fee before they can sponsor the fighter, but the fighter can't even wear or associate with the sponsor during fight week events. So they basically have to do it like on their social media and stuff. which, depends on, how famous the fighter is as far as, how far it gets out there. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how that works out with Francis. I don't think he's going to come to any kind of kumbaya moment with the UFC and fix all this. Even though it seems like they're kind of moving away from the whole Jake Paul controversy, and this whole Israel Adesanya contract makes it look like, they really are paying good money when so many people are saying they're not. Israel's supposedly going to be making, some of the best money any athlete makes in the world, according to what their spokesmen are saying. So they're really trying to hype this up as like, who says we don't pay fighters enough? Look at this. But it's really not the big stars we're worried about. I mean, nobody's saying that, other than Francis, nobody's really saying that these guys are getting screwed over. It's more the $10,000, for an entire fight guy. Or, I think some of them still get paid like $8,000 was the minimum. So, Jake Paul's point is these guys should be paid $50,000 minimum. Especially when you consider all the expenses because of the independent contractor situation. If you play for a football team, they're not charging you for travel. They're not charging you for your coaching. They're probably giving you free health care too. Even though the UFC does have a health care plan, they're not. It's not like you go in and you go to the trainer or whatever at the stadium or at the practice facility. You can go to the trainer any day you want. For the UFC's healthcare, you have to go do a copay and go through the system. It's not like other professional sports at all. It's a totally different animal. And these guys, they're basically losing money to get themselves on the map to get to the point where they're making huge money. So I don't see the UFC really figuring out a way around that. And as I said a couple weeks ago, we're probably going to see Jake Paul, now that he owns a part of the UFC, kind of quietly go away and stop pressuring Dana about this whole fighter pay thing. And I haven't heard a word this last week about Jake Paul versus Dana White. So it's already starting. Anyway, so that's all we have for news and events. That's a quick catch-up. I didn't go all the way back to a couple weeks ago, but I know Ryan Bader did have a win at the last Bellator event. They're not having one again until next weekend. But let's just give Tony his time here to just kind of give a tribute to Dr. Cox. We posted, it's still up there on the top spot because I've been lazy and haven't really put up any new articles in the last few days, but Tony did a big tribute, great stories about Dr. Cox, and my favorite was the barnyard. The barnyard story with the boxer with the broken jaw.
It doesn't. My words don't give it justice. And, you know the voice.
Yeah.
You can kind of imagine it. I had all right, first thing I did was when I wrote it. To step back a minute or so. The Lock Haven boxing show coming up in 2 weeks, and a few weeks ago, Coach Cooper, Ken Cooper, was sending out like I said, I'm vice president of the alumni, so I'm always on the Facebook page and trying to keep with updates and things like that. It's like, hey, trying to get a lot of alumni this year's boxing show. It's going to be February 26th, because on January 26th, I even commented on there. I'm like, hey guys, alumni, we're 1 month away. Let's get people together, make your plans, things like that. Coop's always trying to find out, get deals and discount rates on the hotels, because he was saying, let me get alumni. Because we have a lot of pictures that we want to alumni, and I want everybody to get a chance to see Dr. Cox, because Dr. Cox the last few years has been at an assisted living. His wife Glenda passed away about 10 years ago, And you could see he was in the last few years really in steady decline. So the last time I saw him was 2001. There was no show last year. 2020, we had the show literally 1 month before the world shut down. So Coach Cooper's like, yeah, we want to have the show. We want to get people to see Dr. Hey, sounds great.
We lose you, Tony? Hello?
Right now.
Oh, there he is.
Can you hear me?
You went out for a second. I don't know what happened there.
Yes, sir.
Okay. It says, right now, we're not allowing spectators for the show, because of COVID restrictions. Apparently, as Jimmy McNally from Navy said, they had a wrestling show at Lock Haven a couple weeks ago, and the Navy coach came and told me, he goes, there was people there, nobody was wearing masks, nobody was, whatever, so they're kind of cracking down, the university is. So Coach Coop goes, hey, we're hoping things change by the 26th, but I'd still like to get alumni up here, even if we have to get a remote location, live stream the show, that way everybody can see Dr. Cox. That was last Monday, maybe? Tuesday?
Yeah.
A couple later, Doc's daughter posts something and goes, hey, Dad's stats weren't very good. He didn't have a good day today, but, I FaceTimed him, and, he smiled, and, he fell asleep, and, okay, that's concerning. That was Thursday. Saturday morning, the one physician up there, Dr. Keith Adams, who was one of the physicians when I was boxing there, his wife, she put out a group message to a bunch of us, including myself, obviously, and she's like, things have taken a turn for the worse, and we think that it's close to being time. That was about maybe 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. By about 3 o'clock, Coach Cooper followed up with an email saying, hey guys, it's not good, and we expect that he will be gone within 24 hours. And we already have the funeral planned, which is going to be this Saturday. And then, so he's like, but as of right now, he's kind of drifting in and out of consciousness, but if people want to do FaceTime videos or phone calls or video messages or whatever, you can do that. We'll try to hold the phone up for him. And then, a little bit later that night, 9, 10 o'clock maybe, the message came out from Dr. Adams' wife, Vicky, it's over. He's left this world to be with his wife. And like I said, being the admin of the Facebook page, because, one of my duties is approving members, making sure you don't get spam on the page, so you don't want to get, bot accounts on there that are just going to post nonsense on the page with your Bitcoins and your, whatevers, buy these fake T-shirts and all that. So, I had been over the weekend approving a lot of people joining the page, and then Saturday night it was almost immediate that there was just post after post after post. At like 2, 3 in the morning, I'd hear my phone ping, and I'd kind of open my eyes and be like, "Oh shit, another post I got to approve." That gives you an essence of the impact that Dr. Cox had. And Tom, I don't know if you had a chance to read my novel that I wrote in tribute. One of the things, yes, sir. Thank you. One of the things that I said was, when I was 17 years old, I really wanted to try boxing. I really wanted to get into it. I'm a Philadelphia kid, so we always heard about obviously you hear about Rocky because of Philadelphia and I'm Italian, but then you hear stories of my uncles would always tell me about Rocky Marciano being in Philadelphia. My dad would always talk about Joe Frazier, and you're watching guys on TV like Mike Tyson, and for me, guys like Vinny Pazienza, and I was really getting into it. Man, that was going to be so cool. And my cousin goes, I go to school, they have a boxing team up there. They do? Yeah, and our coach is world-renowned. He is? I'm going to Lock Haven. My dad's like, well, have you looked at other places? There's other good universities. Some places are closer. I don't care. Lock Haven it is. And, I go there, and my first thing was, I sent Dr. Cox a letter, because when you send people letters, and hey, I'm coming up in September, I want to meet you, I want to join the team, I want to do this, I want to do that. So he agrees to meet me as soon as I get on campus. And like I said, I go into the building where his academic office was, and I see this, as I said, this rotund man with a big round face and, red, rosy cheeks looking like Santa Claus walking towards me. I don't know who this guy is, but he can't be the boxing coach. I'm expecting to see, someone younger, and like buff and cut, looking like a Marine drill sergeant, and I'm seeing Santa Claus. And, from right there, I met one of the most impactful human beings I've ever met in my life. And everything to him was education. He was a professor. He wanted you to focus on education. Every chance you had, every road trip was a learning opportunity. He wouldn't let us sleep in the van. If we were driving 6 hours to VMI and we were leaving at 5 in the morning, you don't think you're sleeping on that ride down there, because it was time for education. And he would talk about whatever topics he felt, but they were life topics. And he would call you out. Come on, do you know whatever? The doctor would go, no. You don't know shit. And then he would proceed to educate everybody by making me, that time, the butt of the joke. Always taught respect. Always, said, always value your family. Make your parents proud. Always said make your parents proud. And everybody was writing all these different stories. And Rich, are you on the Lock Haven boxing page?
I don't think so, but if I am, it would make sense.
I think I've got like you. I'm gonna add you to it today, because I'd like you to go on there, and I'd like you just to read some of the tributes that the different guys have written. Everybody has the one guy. He was a Lock Haven national champion. Then he was the coach of Penn State. He might be coaching Army now. His name's Osahan. And he came a year after or so I graduated. And he was saying, like, when he tried to FaceTime Doc that day and he just couldn't get out, he was just crying. And he was about to take some of his fighters to a tournament, and he was just crying. And Coop turned to him and said, you know what Doc would say to you right now? He'd smack you in the head and say, you need to toughen the fuck up. Go win this one for the Doc. Yeah. And he's like, you know what? You're right, let's go. The Barnyard Beef story. This was my first road trip with Doc ever. And I was, 18 years old. We were going to the Naval Academy just for a sparring session. So he took some of his younger guys, just to get us acclimated to being in the ring and all that. And it was me, another guy that was between 180 pounds, 190 pounds, and at the time he was about 205, 210. Big country hick football player, never left the city, never left the country, and he made everything so dramatic. So we're down there, and he gets hit in the jaw for the first time in his life. Oh my God, I can't chew. Oh my God, I can't chew. My jaw, my jaw, my jaw. We're all like, yeah, we all got hit today too, It was the first time for a lot of us. No, I can't chew. So we're going on the way home, and we're going to stop at a McDonald's, to get some food on the way home. And Doc's wife, Glenda's driving, and all of a sudden, Hon, there. That's where we need to go. It's just on the side of the road. It's called Barnyard Beef. It's got to be good. So we're like, okay. So she cuts the guy off in front of us, and we pull into this little place that looks like a shack on the side of the road that had some of the best roast beef sandwiches I've ever had. I figured 30 years later, I'm still talking about them, right? Let's get the roast beef sandwich. It looks about the size of a planet. And we all get roast beef except for this guy, Carl, who was still whining about his jaw. He gets chicken noodle soup, and he's, oh, my jaw, and he's eating the soup. Doc takes a bite of his sandwich. Oh, my God, this is the best sandwich ever. Carl, stop being such a fucking pussy and go get one of these. Fuck your jaw. It'll get better. That one has me cracked. And another one of my favorites, and like I said, one of the guys that commented on my post, one of his fighters, it was actually on the team before I was, said, he goes, I'm reading your words, but I'm hearing his voice. And that meant a lot. That people could say, you know what, I read you, but it has texture. We can feel it. We can hear him. We, the one time, another fighter wrote about it as well. We had a guy on our team that was living off campus, really struggling financially, and he was paying his tuition, and he was paying his rent, couldn't afford food, didn't have a university meal plan, and Doc's like, trying to keep him at about 180 pounds, and he's now getting down to about 168, and Doc's like, why are you, I know I need you at 180, not, under 172. And he's like, and then he comes to find out, the guy didn't want to say it, but he was embarrassed. He goes, I'm not eating, Doc, I can't afford food. Doc, we did a lot for the Salvation Army, they did a lot for us, and he arranged, some, donations, some food, so this young man could eat. So this guy, his name was Jaleel, he had a Muslim father and a Christian mother. Now, Jaleel was Christian, but he respected his father's faith, so he would, adhere to certain Muslim things, one of them being no pork. And so we're getting this box of groceries, and he goes, Doc, I can't eat this. It has pork in it. Doc picks up the can. Jaleel, how do you know that? Doc, it says pork and beans. I never knew that I had pork in it. It's in the title. It's in the title. We had a trip up to New York at one time, and I was fighting on there with two other guys, and we all had to make weight. And the whole time we're driving up there, it was a rare college show where you weighed in the day before. And normally, if you were fighting at Penn State today or fighting at Lock Haven today, like Rich said, you were coming up to Lock Haven, you and I were going to box. I would weigh in that morning. You would weigh in that morning. If you came the night before from VMI, you slept over, you were weighing in the next morning. But this show in New York, because they, wanted to have like a banquet the next morning, so they wanted to let the guys have a little bit of time to, feel somewhat human, they would allow us to weigh in on Sunday. So the whole trip up, after you weigh in, don't eat anything. They're going to have pizzas and all that. Don't eat. We're going out tonight. Penecale, where do you want to go? I want to go a little early, Doc. Okay, we're going to go a little early. We'll find a place a little early. We'll go a little early. Penecale. Italian. Made everybody in the world know that I was Italian. It was a big secret. So we all weigh in. We all go to get changed. We come out, and Doc's on his third slice. So he said, don't eat the pizza. All right, we'll have a slice. You're on number 40. So now we get on the train. We get to Little Italy, go to Luna's restaurant where they filmed the scene of The Godfather. I shouldn't eat that pizza. I'm not hungry. Oh, man. I'm not hungry at all. I'm just going to get a salad. But wow, the legendary Dr. Cox is getting a salad. Wow. So we all get our stuff, and I get something, and this kid Eric, he gets spaghetti and meatballs, and Doc's wife Glenda gets whatever. Doc gets a salad. And then he's telling the whole time that he's not hungry. And Cooper goes, yeah, he's not hungry. Glenda, look where his fork is. It was his fork because he was eating out of Glenda's plate. Then Eric didn't finish his. And Doc's like, Eric, you didn't finish that. Let me have those meatballs. I'll take them. He eats them, and then they bring Eric a doggy bag. He goes, oh, my God, I ate your leftovers. I didn't know you were in a doggy bag. Oh, I'm sorry about that. The year before that, I wasn't on the trip, but I got to tell this one, and my friend Jason Pletcher does the imitation just as good as I do, right? So the year before, they went to Chinatown. They go to obviously a Chinese restaurant, and Doc goes, okay, men, here's what we're going to do. Everybody order something from the menu different, and we're going to put it in the middle, and we're all going to share. We're just going to take what we want, and we're just going to share. So they bring out all this Chinese food, and everybody's eating. And as Jason tells the story, everybody is now stuffed. Everybody but one. And they said Dr. Cox was eating, and eating, and eating. And they're all looking at him like, I can't believe we're watching this. And he stops all of a sudden and looks at everybody and goes, feels like I've hardly eaten a thing. Pass those egg rolls over here. And everybody just stopped, busted into laughter like you wouldn't believe. That's Jason's go-to story. Mine's obviously the Luna's story and the Barnyard Beef story. But, I mean, talk about a guy that was so impactful that, I can't tell you how many people, he's influenced, Rich, you and I being two of them. And the little things that he did, just like you said, doing that coaching certification on an afternoon of a fight. He did the same thing for us. It was the day of my senior year home show, and I fought Michael Jordan. He told all of us, he's like, listen, I want you guys to give back to the sport. I want you to take, and he let us pick what certification we wanted to do. If you wanted to do official, or if you want to do coaching. I did coaching. Another guy on our team, Chad Forey, did officiating, and he became, he refereed amateur fights for years until then he got bogged down. I talked to him last night. He's got 4 kids now, and he just doesn't have time to hit all the shows until, they get a little bit older. He'll get back into it. But that was Doc. He always wanted to say, he told me, if there was ever a card, say Coach Cooper couldn't be there, he would want one of his boxers to help in the corner. There was times he would say, Penecale, your fight, you didn't have a fight tonight, or if I say I was fighting early in the card, maybe I was fighting the second or third fight, help me in about the 8th or 9th fight. So if you get changed and you get cleaned up, come help me in the corner. And there were times some of his fighters would help. We'd actually rotate. Like, just say if it was me, Eric, and Jason fighting on a card. Eric fought first. I was fighting second. Jason was fighting last. Eric would fight. Jason would work his corner. And then I would fight. Eric would work my corner. Jason would fight. I would work Jason's corner. But that helped us learn because, Dr. Cox always cared about education and teaching and giving back. And, Coach Coop said on Saturday, when he put the post out that, with heavy heart, so we have to announce that Dr. Cox has passed away at the age of 88. And I also quoted this in my tribute. A person that has such an impact as he has will never really die because he lives in our hearts, he lives in our souls, he lives in our minds, and he lives in everything that he has taught us to teach others. I told my friend Amy that I trained, and I said, Amy, you never met the man, and I said, but you cannot imagine the number of stories that I tell you or a number of things that I do when we train that come directly from him. So, his physical presence may be gone, but he's not. He never will be. I mean, such, a wide-reaching individual, universally loved, universally respected. And, that's all there's nothing else I can really say. He's just a man was loved, a man was respected. He made us laugh, he made us angry, now he makes us cry. But we celebrate him, we mourn, but we celebrate. Dr. Cox, thank you.
Yeah, just definitely, somebody that is going to be missed. And I appreciate the amount of effort you put into just giving him his due. I know that's tough for anybody that influences you. I just went through it with my dad a couple of years ago, and it sucks losing somebody that's been around that long. And that, you talk to every day, and it also obviously makes you think of your legacy and what are you going to leave behind. So you have to look at those people as the positive examples you should follow, and you obviously you hope that you'd get the same or better. Not to say that any could be any better, but I mean, it's a tough thing. Death in general, it's so hard to comprehend sometimes that it's all going to end. And, obviously
Yeah.
religion and all that stuff has a million different theories about, what happens afterwards. But, you kind of have to have that belief that there's something that goes on afterwards. For me, I kind of...
Here's what I tell people, and this I learned from Dr. Cox as well as other people that have had this strong influence in my life, like Hank Sisko and my family and people that I talk to. One of the things, as I've gotten older, crazy to say, I'm like in a middle age now. I don't act it sometimes, but we know I am. And I can reflect on some of the things they would always tell me, and especially Doc, learn to make your family proud, make your parents proud, make yourself proud. How can you help other people? That was another Hank Sisko thing. What can you do to bring people together? It's not always all about you. So it's like, one day I was sitting there and I was looking at Facebook, right? And I was looking at different people that have liked old posts of mine. And then I look at them and I'm like, wow, there was maybe 5 or 6 people on the one post that have since passed away. Some people that were closer to my age. One died from COVID. One died from cancer. Just a few weeks ago, actually. One died from a drug overdose. Another one died of just simply old age. But it was like 4 or 5 people that I was like, wow. But then I said, you know what? One day, everybody that has commented on this post or liked this post will be gone. And I said, and one day, I look at, a child being born now. It's like, one day that's going to be an old man or an old woman. And, a friend of mine, he lives actually not too far from you, Rich. He's up in the, New England area. And he and I been friends for a number of years. And he wrote something really powerful one day. And he goes, about a human being's memories. And he goes, everybody, like, the way you see yourself is not the way anybody else sees you. Like, you guys see me, obviously, I hope you both respect me. I think you do. But you guys have a different perception of me than I have of myself. Everybody has a different perception of you than you have of yourself. Good point. And everybody has memories in life, right? And you might think of the memory. A couple days ago, I posted on Facebook again was my fight with Michael Jordan. Rich, I know you saw it. So I posted my fight with Michael Jordan, and to me, that's one of the greatest memories of my life. It was my last year, boxing at Lock Haven. My friends were there. Everybody was amped. Had a good fight against a skilled opponent. I won. It was great. And I carry that as a great memory. Michael Jordan sure doesn't carry that as a great memory. Then
we gotta get him. We gotta track that motherfucker down and have him on the show. That would be classic.
Kind of a name though. It's not that easy, But I'll try.
Yeah, right.
Let me take another thing now. You take something else where it's like, you go to a fight. Okay, you go to a big fight. You go to for argument's sake, you go to Gotti Ward, and I'm a big Gotti fan. And I had a friend of mine that was Irish, and he was rooting for Mickey Ward. And the third fight we had a bet on, and I was watching one thing, and I'm getting a certain memory out of it. He's getting another memory. He's losing a bet. Or you're watching a football game, and your team wins the Super Bowl, and you're excited. Rich, perfect example. Super Bowl 52, Eagles beat New England. I have a great memory. Maybe you don't have a great memory. Super Bowl 39, New England beats Philly. Maybe you have a great memory, and mine's not so great. Everybody's memories are unique to them. You can walk down the street right now, and you can see a bird flying, and I could say, wow, that's a beautiful eagle. Someone else could say, look at that winged rat, right? Because it's unique to you. And when you're gone physically, nobody else is ever going to have all those memories, and nobody else is ever going to have all those perceptions. So it's a crazy way to, really look at life. And I tell the young guys that I work with that are, in their 20s, and some of them had, some struggles and some, rough times and all that. And I said, here's how I want you to know that you're making an impact. when, say you don't find value in yourself. You don't find value in yourself, and you're like, well, it would be better if I wasn't in it, right? Well, here's how you can disprove that. Think of the little things that people enjoy about you. If I said right now, guys, I'm checking out. Nothing, this is done. I have nothing else to do. I have nothing else to prove. And you can say, well, man, we're doing our show next week. Man, but when Tony used to be on the show with us, and he would go off in these crazy stories, and he was funny. Man, we miss that. Or maybe for someone that doesn't see me very often, maybe only sees me around the holidays, but they see me at the tree lot, and they're like, oh man, we always look forward to seeing you in the sleeveless shirt and the crazy hat and dancing and singing Elvis and all that. So when that is no longer there, even like having a dog, Rich, with you when you had Brunson, when I had Vinny, and then recently when my friend's dog Roxy passed away, it's like you would go and you would look for something, and when it's not there, that reality hits you. When you go to like a person's birthday and they're not there, that reality hits you. So you tell people, I tell all these young kids, I'm like, you have a lot of value that you can give, and the fact that you're healthy, and the fact that you still have time. You still have time to do good things. Think of this. Think of every time you're about to do something bad, whether it's drink and drive, or do drugs, cocaine, crack, heroin, or whatever. Think of a child in a cancer unit right now that maybe is terminally ill. They would love to have the health that you have, that you are willfully deteriorating.
Yeah, it's like one of those things where maybe it's not as bad these days, but because of COVID and stuff, where death is a real possibility for a lot of people. It's like people get that take it for granted attitude about life, and I find that very hard. I've always found that very hard to just like do nothing with my time, just sit around. I mean, obviously, everybody watches TV, and there's a couch potato every now and then, but it's always hard for me to not get something significant done every single day, to like chip away at my goals and all that. But yeah, it's just life is just so crazy. I think about that all the time. Like, why are some people born paralyzed or with retardation or any number of conditions, and why do people like us get the luck of having full health? Like, but I've had my share of close calls. So I went into respiratory arrest, almost died on a hospital table there, and then I fell off the roof at school, broke a bunch of backbones, and almost broke my neck. But it's always come back like, geez, I'm so lucky to be here, and it kind of makes you really focus on making sure that you pay it forward, so to speak. Like, you not only enjoy your luck, but make it count. So I hope I've done that for a lot of people. I know I got a lot more work to do. One of the things that I've kind of come to the realization recently is that, I really could do a lot more with my writing. I've never really considered myself a writer, and just that, which I could be. Like, I could just walk away from the day job as a logger and do that full time if I really put my energy and time into it. And there's a lot of good projects that not only can I write and make money, but I can write and help people. So that's always been the big focus, especially with the military background that I have. One of the biggest things at Air Force Academy that they emphasized was service before self. And, nobody really puts, everybody else before themselves. You're always got to take care of yourself, so you're not going to be able to take care of anybody else. But you should always at least, do your best to try to help anybody that comes along that needs it, that you can. So I've always really taken that to heart. Try to do my best to contribute to society, and not just so people remember you, but just so that you can, have a full life and look back and say, I've done good things. It's when it's your time, you can, not that anybody's happy about leaving this world, but you could be at peace, as they say. But anyway, I found him, Tony. Michael Jordan. He's on LinkedIn. It was quick. He is right now the Strategic Logistics Planner for the Office of the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff in Washington, D.C. Believe it?
How the hell did you find him?
I just searched Michael Jordan, West Point. And funny enough, there's a kid there right now named Michael Jordan, who is a football player. It's class of 2025. Unbelievable. Small world. But yeah, he says United States Military Academy, Bachelor of Science, Systems Engineering.
That is him, isn't it?
1995 to 1999. So it's got to be him. So I'll have to
Houston, Texas?
Well, that's where he is now. Says, well, that's weird because it says Texas at the top, but then his job right now is in Washington, D.C. So I don't know. He calls himself a Senior Supply Chain Operations Leader. Top Secret SCI. Security clearance. Something, I don't know what the I stands for. Top Secret! He gets all the top secret stuff. Logistics planner, I don't know. I don't know what that involves for the Joint Chiefs of Staff, but that's... The guy that used to be the Commandant of Norwich was in logistics. That's a big career field in the military. So anyway, we'll definitely reach out to him. And be like, I don't know if your ears have been burning, but we've been talking about you.
We've been talking about you for years.
Yeah. I don't know if you remember me, but you kicked my ass. No. That was a close fight. But yeah, he definitely had the inside game. When you have situations like that, you kind of wish he went on to be a 5-time national champion or some shit like that. But I always hate having to tell the story because my guy, I lost to him and then he got beat in 30 seconds. The next
actually, Rich, no, he didn't. Rich, he actually went to the third round. I'm looking at my book right now.
Against Terry? Not Terry, the fucking guy from Air Force Academy?
Yeah, Fletton. Look, I'll send you the photo because I pulled up my senior year scrapbook and I was like, I remember he landed 1 or 2 fights. RSC 3, 151. He was 10 seconds away from last in the distance.
Really? I don't know why I remember. I mean, maybe it's just trying to make it feel better for me that I didn't get on ESPN in the finals. Because for some reason, I always remember it being quick. But then again, wasn't it they weren't 3-minute rounds, right? Was it 2 minutes?
They were 2-minute rounds.
2-minute rounds, so maybe that's why it seemed like a shorter fight. Hard to believe it was that.
Yeah, this was I just pulled. I had my senior year scrapbook out the other week. I was looking at something, and I remember you said 30 seconds. I'm like, no, man, I know he went more than that. In fact, I remember him landing a real nice right hand at one point. And then I was like, I remember that because I remember I talked to him before the fight. I said, listen, Mike, I said, this guy's going to bum rush you. I said, he's 6'7", but he's going to bum rush you, and you're going to have to use your movement. And then he's like, oh, okay. And then it was like I could see him getting overwhelmed, and I'm like, oh, he's gonna get beat. And then it was and then you're like, it was 30 seconds. I'm like, I don't think it was. And then I pulled up my book, and it's right here, RSC 3.
Well, we'll definitely have to see if he wants to come on the show.
Now you're like, damn it. Tony, you're ruining my story.
Well, no, it's all right. I mean, I'd rather have the facts than, be telling people a lie for the rest of my life. So that's good. We cleared that up without even talking to him.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that'd be a great guest. I mean, just to shoot the shit. I mean,
of course. Like 30 seconds. What are you talking about? 30 seconds.
Yeah.
I'm a distance.
I really wonder, if he ever did anything else with boxing after getting out of West Point. He had some talent. I mean, he definitely could mix it up pretty well.
You know what he did, and the thing is, I remember, because it was like I said, it was just a couple days ago when I posted that fight. When I fought him, it was my senior year, home time going to be there, and we knew nothing about him. We knew nothing about him. I didn't even know who he was until he asked where I was standing, because he had to line up across for me to walk, the ring before the pre-fight ceremony. And I just remember thinking, I'm like, I don't know who this guy is. I don't know what he looks like. Blah blah blah. Blah. And then I just remember Coop saying to me, like, we don't have a scouting report on this guy, so you're gonna have to jump on him early and get the crowd involved, because I was notoriously a slow starter. He's like, do not start slow and let him get confidence. You hit him early, get the crowd fired up, and that way get it in his ears. And then I did that. I landed on the left hook about maybe 15 seconds into the first round. Boom, the crowd yelled. And then he landed a really nice right hand. Boom. And he went, you could see, and if you see it on the video, it was first round, he had his right hand, and he kind of, opened his arms up, yeah, gotcha. Came right back at him. I came right after him. I wanted to take that confidence and that momentum right back.
Yeah, it's gonna be funny when I announce that we're gonna have Michael Jordan on the show. I won't say anything else about him. I'll just use the name. We'll see what happens. But I always actually thought it was spelled differently until you corrected me one year on the show. Because when I got the program or the lineups, it was just a one sheet of paper for the Nationals. And when I saw his name on the thing, it was Jordon instead of Dan. So I always thought it was spelled differently. That's probably why I never tried to track him down in the early days. But that was pretty easy. He's on the first page of Google results for Michael Jordan, West Point.
You good?
But anyway, we're running late here, so let's cut it off and rejoin the broadcast next week. And we're going to work really, really hard. I know I say that every week, but I got some time here, and we're going to get a guest one way or another, whether it's Michael Jordan, Sean Wheelock, or whoever else comes along. But obviously John Scully too. We got to get back on the show.
I know.
Long.
He backs me up.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
All right, guys. Enjoy the fights.
All right.
Have a good weekend.
Thanks for stopping by.
Yeah.
Adios.